Hi, I'm Casey Luaters, and this is Could Be Pretty Cool. Two of the most valuable things in the creative economy aren't talent or even money. They're information and access. Knowing what's out there and knowing where to look. Welcome to Could Be Pretty Cool. Today, we're talking with two people who've made it their mission to close that gap for creators, job seekers, and independent artists everywhere. Rachel Meade Smith is a writer, editor, and researcher based in Brooklyn, and the founder of Words of Mouth, a weekly newsletter that's been connecting people with curated job opportunities, fellowships, and residencies for 10 years. With an audience of over 70,000 and a forthcoming book called Search Work, she's built something that started as a personal habit into a genuine lifeline for people navigating the job market. Danielle Desir Corbett is the founder of Grants for Creators, a grant discovery platform built specifically for independent creators. A former grant administrator turned full-time creator herself, she launched the platform in 2022 after realizing that the funding opportunities she was finding and winning were basically invisible to most of the creative community. Her community members have collectively won over $162,000 in grants and counting. What I loved about this conversation is that both of them started the same way, seeing something useful, sharing it with a few people, and realizing the need was way bigger than they thought. We get into what it actually takes to sustain this kind of work, how they've each built systems around their lives rather than the other way around, and the real tension of monetizing something you started because you wanted to help. Let's get into it. So on today's episode of Could Be Pretty Cool, I actually have to try to contain myself, maintain my composure in some ways, because my guests are people that I have admired for quite some time, because Could Be Pretty Cool is all about providing opportunities for folks in the creator and creative economy to be able to build and grow sustainable careers. And one of the ways that we try to do that is through community building by sharing resources, making sure people know what opportunities are out there, what funding opportunities, what fellowships and grants, and just ways that indie creators can better just find ways to be able to exist in this complicated world. And so one of those resources that we often share are newsletters geared towards creators, innovators, folks in sustainability, just folks who are constantly looking for ways to continue to grow their careers. And I am joined by two of just to be the best in the biz right now. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about what it is that they do, what their newsletters are about. And yes, I would love to start with you, Rachel. Could you tell us a little bit more about you and about your newsletter?
Sure. So I am a writer, editor, researcher based in Brooklyn, New York, and I have run Words of Mouth for the last 10 years, started in 2016. It is a free weekly newsletter that shares very highly curated jobs, opportunities for publication, fellowships, residencies, those sorts of things, as well as classifieds from readers and their network that share workshop services, anything that they're building and trying to grow that they want to get in front of people. I have an audience of over 70,000 now across the world, primarily located in New York, Los Angeles, the high density metro areas in the States, but I've got people everywhere. I occasionally get to host some in-person things here in Brooklyn where I bring job seekers together, folks from the community together. Just hosted what I'm calling my first annual no company holiday party around Christmas, which was essentially a holiday party, a company holiday party for people who are unemployed, who don't have company holiday parties, which is really, again, just trying to celebrate the fact that we are not alone when we are searching for work, even though it can feel that way, and it does feel that way. Trying to build community around that. around that like really difficult process and really shining light on how it impacts our psyche, our sense of self. And that's also what my forthcoming book is about. So I have an anthology coming out in the spring, which is also a culmination of these 10 years of work, which is contributions from the words of mouth community about job hunting and the emotional terrain of that work, which is what I'm calling search work, which is the name of the book. So yeah, it's mostly a newsletter, but it has tentacles that kind of flare out into other directions, but all about supporting job seekers and finding work that is meaningful to them, but also good for society, humanity, the planet, and really trying to uphold the belief that you do not need to sell out in order to live and survive under capitalism. There are ways to do good work that feels good and does as little harm as possible, ideally no harm, but that's impossible. Yeah, that's...
I'm actually a founder of Grants for Creators. We are a grant discovery platform built for creators by creators. I've been a creator for the last 11 years. And the inspiration for getting started was that I would see funding opportunities that I was applying to or considering. And I was starting to win, and I felt like no one else was talking about this. So I was like, you know what? Instead of sharing it with my 5 group of friends on the group chat, let me share it with others. So I launched a newsletter version in 2022, and it really took off. I think creators, although we are very flexible, we're also very rigid in our thinking a lot of times. So the last 4 years, I've just been campaigning to let people know, hey, grants are a funding opportunity available for us. Like, we are really good. Like, when we apply, we actually do win. Over the last 4 years, we've seen our community members win over $162,000 in grant funding. So keeping track of those winnings is really important. And a little bit about me, I'm actually a former grant administrator. So I worked at a really top tier medical school in the country, doing not similar, but adjacent work with medical teams and research teams, helping them administer their grants. So being able to take that to the creator economy, creator space has been very fulfilling. And at this point, like, I see grants every single day. And that is like part of my full-time job, which I absolutely love.
One of the things that's just striking me about hearing about both of your journeys, number one, is that you've been at it in some capacity for 10 plus years, which I think is important for people to hear. But also, I would love to know from both of you, like, the why. Why did you decide, you know what, I see this issue of people needing resources or needing to find opportunities, so I'm going to take it upon myself to start being the ones to help curate and, like, putting this out there to the world. Rachel, we can start with you again.
I started when I was in the midst of my own job search. I had just finished grad school and I really felt quite lost. I had gotten what I thought was my dream job because I still thought that those existed. And I was miserable. And so I was looking for work all the time at work. Part of why I was miserable is because I was very underutilized. So I had a lot of time. And I started to feel guilty about it because I was young. And I still had, I thought I owed something to the employer. And so I started collecting jobs that I thought my fellow interdisciplinary people in my life would appreciate. I had gone to this graduate program that was very unapplied. So it was about like theory and history of design. And so we graduated and we were like very ready to critique the design world, but not to work in it because we had no actual skills, design skills, most of us. We could just write and read a lot about it. It took a lot to find anything that was right, that felt right for me, because there were no job boards for people who work in design but aren't designers. So I was looking at all over the internet in all the different places and finding like the weird listings that didn't quite fit into the like classic job title taxonomies and collecting them and just sending them out to people I thought might enjoy them. Somewhat similar, I guess, to Danielle, how you started your newsletter. And at one point I just thought I should just formalize this and make it like I'm finding so many and I actually love it. I've always loved looking for work. And so I just emailed like maybe 100 people and was like, do you want to be on this newsletter that I'm starting? And this is 2016, so it wasn't like everyone had a newsletter or subscribe to newsletters. It was still, oh, wow, I should make a newsletter. That's a cool mode of communication and knowledge sharing. So anyway, that's why I started it, because I was like, there's definitely more people like me out there who don't know where to look, but who don't like looking as much as I do and who aren't maybe as good at looking as I am. I happen to love research. I like documenting things, and I thought I'd be like a good person for this, and that we're just people out there who are like, I literally don't know where to start. I do not know where to look, and I don't know what exists. And I wanted to say, there's actually some really cool stuff out there. And it's not really for me, but I think it might be for you or your friend. And yeah, that's why I started. And that's why I keep going. There's still so much cool stuff out there. And especially now when the narrative is very doom and gloom. And frankly, that is the reality as well. And yet still every week I find 30 jobs that I want to put in the newsletter that I think are worthy of it. And even if you don't get those jobs as a reader or don't apply to them, there's still this sense of, oh, okay, it's not completely dead out there. There is stuff. I should keep looking, because next week maybe something will pop up. You literally never know what's going to happen tomorrow and what'll come on the market tomorrow. And that's the energy I want to put forth into the world of, like, essentially don't give up and there's all kinds of compromise you'll have to make over the course of your career. But like you don't have to make like the big compromise. Like, you can still keep your sights on something better, something that makes you feel worthy and good and inspired. And I have a lot of people who I now communicate with from the newsletter who I hear this feedback, I get this feedback loop now. So for a long time, I was like, I hope this is working for people. And now I know that it is. And that's a big reason why I keep going, because it feels like, it's serving this purpose for people. And I like to, I don't know how I would feel taking that away from the world.
Nice. Fun fact. Could be pretty cool. The whole sort of concept started just as a Facebook group, literally I would just see stuff and be like, oh, I'm not eligible for this, but this could be pretty cool. Somebody might, here you go. And I love that mentality of, this may not directly affect me or may not directly be something that I am good for, but sharing that information that could literally like change a life. So Danielle, could you tell us a little bit more about your why and what really motivated you to start your newsletter?
Okay, so I fell into grant administration in healthcare. Like, I was in a healthcare space, but administration of grants was like a very special niche. So that's that. But it was just fascinating to me to see how much federal funding foundations were supporting researchers and research teams. And to me, that was fascinating. Now, on the side of me working my corporate gig, I always had a travel blog. I always had my travel podcast. So I knew grants existed, but I was thinking it's more of the healthcare library route, not like regular creator podcaster working in her closet. So around 2020 came around and things were shut down, but there was a lot of money being moved. A lot of people supporting the arts, supporting creators. And I kept on seeing so many funding opportunities that I was like, you know what? I'm going to start applying. I started applying and I just won one after another. No grant writing experience. I wasn't a grant writer. I was an administrator. So pretty much like a program or project manager. So I was bossing the research teams around. Give me this, give me that. We got to put this together to apply, but not the writing piece. So for me to be in my creative like hustle and winning grants was like very magical for me. And I felt like I couldn't unsee the money that was pouring in to support my podcast. After winning a couple of them, I was sharing them with my friends via text messages, like I mentioned, and I just felt like I was annoying them. And I wasn't really sure, is this being accepted? Is it being appreciated? I don't want to be like that over the top. So eventually 2021 came around. I was expecting my firstborn and also quit my job around that same time. And I had this dream of creating this newsletter, but it fell off the wayside. I was just not thinking about it. But one day when I was sleeping, 2 a.m. in the morning, I felt like a knock in my stomach. And my son was like, hey, in my belly, by the way, he's not really born, but in my belly, it was like, he was telling me, he's like, hey, listen, you've been sleeping on this project. Just do it. Just put it out there. And I was like, if 3 a.m. insomnia for a pregnant mom is very normal. Okay. Very normal. So I was like, okay, fine. So I was like, what's the easiest, fastest way for me to get this started? I don't want to do a WordPress site. I don't want to do a hire designer. Let me make it super easy. So I found a platform and I just started sharing opportunities. And if you follow me on X, formerly Twitter, that was my first tweet where I was like, hey guys, I'm super nervous about sharing this. This may not work. I could just fall flat on my face, but I'm going to share what I find. And this was untested. Like at the time, I didn't know any creator who was curating grant opportunities at this kind of scale for more than one person. And this was untested. Now I feel 4 or 5 years in, everyone has a paid newsletter. Everyone has certain things already established. But for me, it was very nerve-wracking. And I wasn't sure if I could find grants like at scale. Like today, I could find over 100 per month for creators in particular in the US. At that time, I wasn't really sure. So overall, my why is accessibility. I feel like there's so much free money with strings attached, as I call them, available for creators, artists, photographers, filmmakers, like you name it. There's so much funding out there that's ready for the taking. But again, for creators, we don't speak that language. We don't know typically that this exists. So we typically count ourselves out. So my whole mission beyond finding grants and sharing them is now equipping creators with that know-how, that trust within ourselves to know that I have what it takes to share and advocate for my project, for my community, for my program. And I see that shift happening and the wins are continuing to compound, which is very inspiring. Like I always feel if a creator comes to me and they're like, hey, I found a grant, applied from your newsletter and I won. I feel like I won. I'm like, wow, because I know how it feels to have 2,000, 5,000, 20,000 hit your account. And finally, the project that you have shelved for so long gets the funding it deserves. That's what I want. I want all of our shelved projects, I wish I could, but I can't, to be able to live out in the world. And then lastly, here's like my big overarching, right? When you fund creators, here's what happens. The work that we're doing actually gets to see the light of day. So for example, I have a podcast series that I had to shelve in 2025 because I personally feel like a lot of the partners I was working with were now no longer into DEI, for example. They were not really working on promoting projects that were inclusive and focusing on diversity. So 2025, goose eggs, 0. And I had to shelve that project, which meant that my listeners couldn't hear about the amazing history from Charleston, South Carolina. And they couldn't see like my Black history and heritage series come to life. And that's the true impact of our work. When you have a creator that's grant funded, they create something and that creation gets to be enjoyed by society at large. So that's really what I'm trying to tie in. It's not just, okay, I'm self-funded or I'm getting funding. It's amazing, but what are you creating? And with that funding, you could use that creation to support your community, to be a light for others out in your community in your world. Yeah, that's a long-winded, but it really keeps me motivated to come and do this every day.
No, and I think it's such a relatable, it was the best of times and worst of times in 2020 era for creators. I too be like, wait a second. People are responding to emails and actually giving you feedback and notes on projects and saying we have a small budget if you can figure out how to make it happen. Like it didn't seem real. And I feel like a lot of us now are trying to figure out like, how do we continue this creative practice, as you alluded to, with the shifting societal implications, shifting funding implications. It is definitely a journey out here. And so you alluded to some of the things you've got going on, Danielle, with your podcasts, family, other things. I would love to know from both of you, and we can start with you, Danielle, as an ecosystem builder for indie creators, for job seekers, for folks who are looking for these next opportunities, but also people who are still working and living and doing things yourselves. How do you actually carve out time to do this, to find these opportunities, to maintain that engagement, to get that feedback, to refine what you're doing? How does this fit into your work and non-work life? We'll start with you, Danielle.
Yeah, what a great question. I feel so much more clear about that answer today. So our Grants for Creators team is a 2-person team. So I am the head curator, digging in, looking in the emails, looking in the internet to find every opportunity every single day at this point. And here's why it's a daily task. If you stop looking, you miss out. So that's why daily is so important. And also when it comes to grants have sharp opens and sharp close dates. A lot of times 10 days, 15 days. So if you don't look, you're not going to find, typically speaking. And then, so that really takes a toll. But I also have a wonderful grants manager. We actually worked in corporate America together. And when I left, they left too. And they're like, let's just do this together, which was amazing. So we pretty much are a really great oil team. At this point, Grants for Creators is part of my full-time job. I have other businesses as a creator and things like that, but it is definitely full-time work here. And I think one of the things that's amazing about grants is that it can be done while I'm laying on the couch or before bed. I can do that. I don't necessarily have to be in front of a computer to do a lot of the searching. So I could fit it into my life in the slower pockets. I remember when I was like breastfeeding and like newborn baby era, 3 a.m. again, like that was when I was finding opportunities and finding grants. But I think as a curator, it's really important to stay organized. It's really important to have a filtering system to know what you're going to share, what you're not going to share, what speaks to you, what doesn't speak to you. For example, this year, I decided no longer to share paid opportunities. There are some grants that you have to pay an admission fee for or application fee for. And I decided, you know what, not going to be in anyone's pocket, but I'm not sharing those anymore within my newsletter. So there are boundaries that you set. But I do think that if you want a curation newsletter to be your full-time job, it could definitely happen. It's going to take time, patience, but people will definitely see the value that you're bringing and the time that it's saving them to have to do this themselves as well.
Rachel, same question. How do you carve out the time? And your newsletter is weekly. How do you carve out the time to actually maintain this very daunting undertaking?
It took me many years to figure that out. There were years where I was like in my house every Sunday, all day, building it. And I just realized I couldn't do that anymore. I wanted my weekend. And I've had periods of time where I was working full-time jobs, periods of time where I've been working more than I am now. So it kind of ebbs and flows based on what my schedule has in it. I have a young child too. I have an almost 2-year-old. And so like weekends now are just not really an option. So it's changed over time as my life has changed. But right now it's basically Mondays and Fridays are words of mouth days. And occasionally, if I know I have a really busy Monday, I'll work on a Sunday night. And I'm right now also a researcher, editor, and writer for a center at Georgetown. And so that's contract work. But I'm like, that work happens Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I do not have meetings on Mondays and Fridays unless they're related to the newsletter or the book. I do not allocate hours outside that is not related to words of mouth in some way on those days. I also sometimes go to a museum or something, or have lunch with a friend. But at this point, I have my system really down. So a lot of my job listings, a lot of them are sent directly to me from employers or people who just are referring, but mostly employers who are hiring. And so on Fridays, I'll answer all the emails, which depending on what kind of week it is, what kind of month it is, that could take 20 minutes, typically not. It could take 2 hours. And by the end of Friday, I have a sense of what's going in the newsletter on Monday. But also throughout the week, I'm going through all of my like keyword alert emails from every site. And I'm selecting the jobs I want to think about including. So I'll put them in. I use Instapaper to save the links that I want to look at. And then on Monday, I'll look at Instapaper. I'll look at what I have saved in Instapaper. I'll like cross-check it with what I have that was directly submitted to me in my email and say, okay, what's this looking like? What do we need more of? Do we need more lower, like entry level? Do we need more in this field? Are there too many jobs like this? This is all like very like not at the surface, though. I'm not actually asking myself those questions. I'm just like, it's just programmed now where I'm like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then on Monday typically is when I start putting it into the actual like newsletter format. And then somehow, and I blame my daughter, like somehow I'm still at 8:29 every Monday scrambling to get it proofread and sent out. It's just me. I've never hired anyone to work with me for better or worse. So it's just me. And I'm just like 8:29. I'm like clicking the last link and then I'm like, okay, send. It's crazy. Every week I'm like, oh, I have so much time. I'm good. Like Monday, I'll just go to the post office for a while. And then I pick my daughter up from daycare. And then I realized like I didn't finish. I'm like in my head, I'm imagining it's like the last quarter of the newsletter is like still empty. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to fill that up after she goes to bed at 7:30 so that it can get out by 8:30. So I say I have it down because it's the same every week, but it doesn't mean it's like working necessarily, but it's not terrible. Like I could spend more time on Fridays, for instance, like building out filling in the actual newsletter, but there's something about emailing that just really takes it out of me. So I'm like, okay, I emailed for 2 hours. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And I will at that point do like research where I'll be like going to all the websites, going to all of the like niche job boards that I've saved over the years, LinkedIn, which love to hate on LinkedIn, but it really is a great place for finding job leads. So I spend a lot of time like doing that kind of web crawling after I've spent all of my energy, of like my active energy on emails. So I have to balance out the different tasks and like what kind of energy they require. But so, yeah, it's a system to me. It probably doesn't sound like a system to anyone else, and it could definitely use improvements. But that's how I at least know when I'm looking at my week, like when this is all happening. And similar to you, Danielle, I will scroll on my phone when I'm tired, like looking at my alerts, saving those links to Instapaper. Like that's a really good downtime. Oh, I have 20 minutes right now. I don't want to read a book or something. I'm just going to do this. So it does fill in the quieter moments during the week too, but I try to keep it really to Monday, Friday.
Oh, yeah. I also wanted to say that as a curator, it's really hard to have a hard stop if you're not disciplined, because literally you'll hit send and then you'll find something, stumble on something immediately after. And if you're, oh my God, like there's no need, like just table it, save it for the next issue if possible. And like I mentioned, it's hard because like when it comes to grants and job opportunities there, you have to act fast. But I do think, like Rachel said, having a system is really helpful. And also like communicating with our audience to us has been helpful to educate them about how grants work. Listen, I'm not in charge of these grants. Like every funder is different. So don't complain to me like that the deadline is like two days away. So just educating folks about what they can expect and how things work has been really helpful, because a lot of times, at least for me, it's first time grant applicants. A lot of my audience is first time even considering this.
No, that's so valid. The sort of education piece that sort of comes along with what it is that you do. And I think it's endearing that you both are also doing that in addition to all the other things. And so my final question for both of you is, a lot of us in spaces where like we want to do things because we want to help people, because we've been on the receiving end of that help. When it comes to receiving monetary compensation for that help work, some of us is, I don't know how is that. Should I? But you both have successfully monetized these platforms. And some advice that was given to me recently was the more resources that you have, the more help that you can provide. And that's the reframing of being okay, being paid for the hard work that you do. So I would love to know from both of you your perspectives on creating a platform that is creating value for people all over the world, as you said, but also using that platform as a tool that is hopefully creating some value in a monetary sense for yourselves. And we can start with Rachel.
Yeah, this has been something I've really struggled with over the years, because I always was like, this is a free resource. I'm not doing it for the money. And For a long time, I really didn't make very much money. I wasn't asking for money, but over the years, just with the number of people who are submitting to me and donating, and it is still donation based, although I do have classifieds, which have a required sliding scale fee, and those fill up 2 months in advance. So I'm making kind of consistent money from that. And then I'm also making consistent money from voluntary donations from people who are submitting jobs. And sometimes I have sponsors as well. And I've been really reluctant to intentionally grow that. Although I will say this month I hired a friend to help me just strategically systematize it. Yes, it's a really big deal for me. It's literally been 10 years. So I have slowly come around to to understand and appreciate the fact that this is my job. I should be paid for it because, like you said, Casey, if I'm not paid for it, I can't do it. I have to spend my time doing work that I'm paid for. And I still do, but I definitely have so much more latitude to spend time on this and to grow it. And I was able to work on the book because I am sustained somewhat from these submissions. I also think for me, it's easier to take money from the people who are hiring, obviously, because it's still a bargain for the number of people who are seeing the role, the quality of the candidates. I know that what they are giving me, even if they're donating generously, is still a bargain compared to a lot of other job boards or recruitment services or headhunting services. So I feel fine about that. But yeah, I think, and this is probably the same for so many independent artists or entrepreneurs or people who are I'm just going to do this thing because I like it. And then they start making money from it, where it can take years to reframe that in your head as this is a livelihood. I run a small business, and that's just not how I've thought about it, or I've talked about it for many years. And I'm actually being forced into that, thinking in that way because I'm trying to buy an apartment, and I'm trying to explain in the co-op letter in the board letter what I do. And I'm no, you don't understand. I actually have this long standing business that has sustaining consistent income, but I don't know how to prove that to you because it's this donation based newsletter. It just doesn't sound like anything real or substantial, but of course I know what it is, and I know it's substantial, and it's been a decade. So anyway, I've been thinking a lot about this question in the last month because I've been is anyone going to trust that I can pay the mortgage because I'm not employed full time, and this is how I make a lot of my money. Yeah, it's a real process, thinking, wrapping my head around using this project to sustain my life and then to sustain the work itself. And yeah, I've gotten better at it, but as you can tell, it's in progress.
Oh, it's a whole process. I think that is super relatable. Danielle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a business. This pays for my family. This pays for my team member. This business supports 2 people, 2 families, 2 women of color. So first and foremost, I knew at a certain point that I wanted to turn on the paywall because I know how long it takes to find grants. It's not just, creator grants, type it into Google, good luck. Good luck to how much you will find that are expired, that are just announcements, that it's just such a time suck. So I already knew what the value was, and I already knew once I hit this amount of subscribers that I wanted to turn on the paywall. And I think over time, it's gotten easier because I'm not the only person advocating for me. There's thousands of people who are sharing links and recommending. So you have to give it a little bit of time so that there's a machine behind it that supports and shares. And the monetary part is half of the conversation because I mentioned, if people aren't applying, then it's not as useful. Someone told me one time, you're just sending a list of a list. And I was hold on, please don't just minimize what I'm doing to a list of grants. It's a resource hub that's filtered for creators. So my goal is for when people hop on, it's not you have to shift through all this stuff on Google or all this stuff. It's very centered. We work on really making sure it's clear as well. So to me, I don't have a lot of mental drama around it. People either support and they want to see this continue, or they can just continue to stay a free subscriber. We have lots of ways that we keep things accessible for folks. There are particular lists that I curate that are free for everyone, regardless. And they're always, every newsletter that I put out, there's always a preview section where I share like anywhere from 5 to 10 grants. Hey, like you could just preview this and see if you like it. And then lastly, we have a bullet point list where we share with everyone, hey, in this newsletter, here's what you can expect. So people who are signing up already have a clear understanding that, oh, there's a podcast grant in here that I want to check out. Or there's like, I want to see a particular type of funding opportunity. So over the years, I've definitely made it easier. I think through some of the, I would say the objections people have about subscribing to a paid newsletter like this. But at the end of the day, the ability for us to sustain 4 years is because we have the support of our community. And every day I wake up feeling empowered to do this because I know I have people who are depending on me, people who are looking for opportunities. So that definitely changed my mindset. And lastly, I always say in the newsletter, I'm like, if you want this to continue, you have to support. It's impossible to believe that someone could spend 40 hours per week finding things and that being something to be able to sustain for 4 years. Like it's not. So yeah, it's less mental drama around it. If you have clear goals and what you want to do and you communicate your value, and then eventually people will communicate the value for you as well.
We over here, as it's been stated many times, are certainly fans of the value that you all bring to the ecosystem. And yeah, how can more people learn about these newsletters, all the work that you all are doing, events, all the things? What's the best way for people to find you or to subscribe? Rachel, how can they do that?
Everything is on my website, wordsofmouth.org. You can subscribe, you can pre-order search work, those are pretty much the only two things you need to do. And then if there's any big announcements about gatherings or other things, I'll typically throw that in the newsletter. I also have an Instagram for the newsletter, which is linked on the website, which is not the most active place. I basically just repost stories and other things that people send me on Instagram, but it's great if you're looking for like a little hit every once in a while in between Mondays on Instagram. But yeah, mostly just subscribe to the newsletter and everything else will come through there.
Very cool. How about you, Danielle?
Yes. So head over to grantsforcreators.com. We have a monthly roundup every single month, and we actually update our list every week. Like I mentioned, grants never stop. So we continue to update our monthly list every single week. My goal is always to be able to hit that 100 mark for the month. So I'm always making sure that there's enough that I can share in there. And we do really like fun challenges and fun events. Like we just finished hosting a Hit Submit challenge, where we have a cohort of creators are working on grant applications together to hit that submit button. So definitely stay tuned for just events that we host. I also like to go live every other week, sharing a little tidbit or interviewing a funder. So those things, again, community building, I think is really a big part of the newsletter creations services that we provide. So yeah, grantsforcreators.com. Great place to connect.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. This is like weird and I feel stanny, but that's okay. Because yeah, every week, I'm looking at your newsletters and yes, thank you. I appreciate you.
Rachel, I just subscribed. So your newsletter is new to me. So I just subscribed and looking forward to just staying in touch and collaborating in the future for sure.
Definitely. Thank you, Casey. This was fun.
Cool.
Have a good one. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
There were a few key things that stuck with me from this conversation. First, curation is creative work. It's easy to think of what Rachel and Danielle do as just finding stuff and sharing it, but both of them have built editorial instincts over years, knowing what to include, what to cut, what their communities actually need versus what looks good on paper. That kind of judgment is a skill, and it's one that gets sharper with time, not shortcuts. Second, your system doesn't have to look polished to work. Rachel described her Monday night scramble at 8:29 p.m. to hit send by 8:30, and Danielle talked about finding grants while breastfeeding at 3 a.m. Neither of them has some perfectly optimized workflow, and that's the point. They've built processes that fit into their actual lives, not idealized versions of themselves. If you're waiting for the perfect system before you start, you're going to be waiting a very long time. Finally, getting paid isn't the opposite of helping people. Both Rachel and Danielle talked about the mental shift from, this is a free thing I do because I care, to, this is a business that sustains my ability to care. Danielle put it plainly, if you want this to continue, you have to support it. And Rachel's been on a 10-year journey to internalize that same thing. If you're building something that creates genuine value, charging for it isn't selling out. It's what keeps the lights on so you can keep doing the work. For more on the resources mentioned today, including links to words of mouth and grants for creators, head to our Substack. This has been Could Be Pretty Cool. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Farewell, and may all of your creative endeavors flourish. Could Be Pretty Cool News is a Could Be Pretty Cool original production. Created, hosted, and executive produced by Casey Lueders. Senior producer is Liz Moore, and supervising sound editor is Trinity Jackson. Our original theme music was composed by Camille Stennis and cover art design by AJ Johnson. To learn more about Could Be Pretty Cool and discover whatever else we're up to, visit us at couldbeprettycool.substack.com. Thank you for listening.